Hey, it's Mosquito, also known as Chris. Welcome to the shop. Today, we're going to work on the reservoir, or the reservoirs, since this one, this was the practice. Yeah, we'll go with that. Anyway, let's go check out how this thing was made. All right, so let's take a look at our reservoir here. And so this is the first prototype of it. I didn't know that it was going to be the first prototype until I started actually getting into it a little bit, but I've gone ahead, I've drilled the holes for the screws that I would eventually tap, the 4 holes for where the other res pump top goes, and I've drilled out the G-quarter for the pass-through. And when I do it again, I'll get into how I actually drilled out that hole to get it right where I needed it to. But two things. One, shouldn't have drilled these holes all the way through. So I'm actually using, not this exact part, but it was something that came off of the water-cool pump top reservoir, just so I could get the actual pump top, because at first I thought it was pretty simple. It was just a circle with the hole drilled into it at one side for this to pump the water out of, but it's not round, and there's a bit of an undercut, and I don't have the right end mill for that. So anyway, that's why I'm going with their pump top. I'm a coder. I write software for a living. They do 3D designs for water cooling parts, so I figured I'd just leave that part up to them. Anyway, so the way this one works is it basically sits on the pump like that. A little bit different because this is the top part, there's a middle part, but ignore that. Basically, this will go here, and then the pump will be underneath that in the actual pump top, and that's how that'll work. But when I drilled these holes all the way through, I realized once I went to put it together that my screw holes are, 3 of them are on the inside of the O-ring. Yeah, so that's a problem. And the other thing was when I went to go drill this hole where I needed it, so say this was the actual outlet hole here, it's not. That should actually be over here a bit more, but anyway, to get that evenly spaced to mount it where I want on the radiator, it ended up being a lot closer when I drilled this hole, a lot closer to these 2 screw holes, so I don't think I'd be able to use those. And originally I had it kind of planned out to have this port over and down a little bit. So what I was going to do is notch out that corner for the cover plate, the front plate that'll go over here to seal it. I was just going to notch it out so that way I could just ignore that, not have to O-ring it or anything. But looking at how much space I actually have and knowing that I'm going to have to shift everything here over a little bit to make room, I think what I'm going to do is cut an O-ring groove just like I did out here around this port, and then I'm just going to drill straight through the cover plate that I make through this to make that hole, and then I'll just thread the cover plate, have the O-ring there for the seal. And I think that'll be honestly probably a little bit easier than trying to notch out the corner, even though I know I just need to design it up and whatever. But yeah, so I've had worse worst first attempts. So yeah, I think I will go back to Fusion 360, make some of the tweaks. I won't drill these 3 all the way through. So these 4 are actually oversized. I don't know if you can see that, but these 4 are oversized because they're pass-through. Because what they'll end up doing is they go through this reservoir, well, through the top plate, through this reservoir, through the other part of the water-cool reservoir and then into this, which I'll put a couple of just nuts on the back side of that so I can tighten down on that thing. But yeah, I think the other thing I'll do is move this this wall over a little bit just to give myself a little bit more room. Actually, I'll probably just move the whole thing over a little bit, make it a little bit narrower, and like I said, add that O-ring groove, and then I'll probably add, I think, a screw hole right here as well, just to kind of tighten down all the way around this O-ring as well. So I guess we'll go try that again. All right, so this time around, I'm going to kind of walk through what I'm doing. I start with an adaptive clear in the main, I guess you would call it reservoir, the actual part that's going to hold most of the liquid. And once that's done, I go through and do just a contour all the way around the walls just to clean that up. And then there's just a pocket for the very bottom. And then I do an adaptive clear and clean up the rest of it. And then I just kind of pocket that. And then I do another adaptive clear around the outside, again, just to make sure that I don't run into any extra material. Probably could have done a little bit better job of trying to cut it down to just barely bigger than I needed, but honestly, this is a lot easier and you don't need to be quite as precise this way. And then after that, I do a contour around the outside and clean that up top to bottom. And then we clean the CNC. One thing that I don't like about using acrylic on the CNC, gets everywhere. Then I came back with a smaller end mill, drilled out all my holes. Then I had to switch to yet another smaller end mill. This one is I believe it's a 1 millimeter, and had a bit of a crash actually where I hit the dust boot, so I had to re-zero, which is what I was doing there. But now I'm just cutting that O-ring groove all the way around, and then that little one, and test fit. And ended up having to do it one more time. I lowered it down just a little because the O-ring didn't actually fit that well. So now we're good. Then I flipped it over, repositioned it, and I'm just doing another adaptive clear to clean out that pocket where the pump top and the pump go. And then once that's done, I do a contour along the wall just to have that be a little bit cleaner. You really aren't going to see it, and it's not like it really matters, but yeah, it makes me feel a little better. And then now I'm just cutting out the acrylic top for, well, the top. Cutting the blank for the top. Yep. Sometimes you don't have enough link belt, so you steal it for other machines. Actually, I had stolen it for this one because I needed it in order to run the metal gearbox. When I cut that thick acrylic, I needed to slow the blade down, but this is thin enough that it doesn't really matter. All right, now onto the top piece. This one's a lot simpler of a setup. I just do the adaptive clear followed by the contour around the outside. Same thing, same bit. I use the boring operation to do all of the recesses, the big G-quarter, and then also to do the actual through holes. That's pretty much that. Okay, so this is the reservoir. I've got the water cool pump top res part thing taped on here, and where with the screws through where it'll be. And then this is just a block of wood. There's a hole drilled here that'll use, I'm using one of those Swift Tech, I guess they're usually used for SLI fittings, but I've got that in there as an alignment, and then I cut this out on the CNC to be exactly where I need it to be, so I just get this lined up with that reservoir, and then I can use that as a guide. So I'll use that to basically just place my drill bit so that I can drill that out in the right spot to get it lined up with the radiator. So now you can kind of see how that works. Just had that fitting on there. That goes here. I'll line it up with the bottom. Ta-da! And so I was basically just, sighting in here to see about how far I was drilling, because what I'm going to do eventually is come back in, drill from the top so that I can get a hole located, so this will end up being a pass-through fitting, so it'll go out of the pump into the radiator, out of the radiator, out the front. Alright, so I've got the top cover in place, and I'm going to drill through the top cover down into the reservoir and connect it up with the port that I have out in the front. And yeah, should be alright. And I'm just using some soapy water as a little bit of a lubricant, since this is going to be fairly good sized hole. Fairly deep anyway. There we have it. So now I'll throw the tap in here and we'll get those tapped. Once again, power plug right there. And a little bit of deburring here on the top. And on the bottom or side, whatever. There we go. One reservoir pretty much done. Here it is, all put together. Everything all buttoned up. I made the O-rings for both the pass-through port and the actual reservoir cover itself. Got all my holes drilled. So you can kind of see what I was talking about here, where I've got these two Swift Tech fittings. I got the male and the female, just kind of, I put the male end on whichever is the output, just because then I don't have to worry about water being forced into that O-ring between the inside and the outside piece. Yeah, so basically that'll be the out. This will come back in, feed through there, and you can kind of see what I was talking about here, how we have my reservoir, the water cool pump top res, half of it anyway, and then the water pump. And yeah, so that'll go onto a radiator. So I have the opposite of the two Swift Tech fittings, so that'll just slide on there. I'm not too worried about this moving up. Once it's in the case, it'll be right up against the power supply, so really not concerned about that, because it won't have anywhere to go. Barely fits in the case as it is with this particular setup. But yeah, so basically that out on the pump goes straight into here, and then it comes to the pass-through, goes through the rest of the stuff, comes back in here. So pretty simple, I guess. I think that should work. I'm almost wondering now if I should put a port in the, well, if I put a port in the top, I'm not going to be able to get to it anyway. Because once I get everything all hooked up, having somewhere to fill this is going to be a little bit of a pain in the butt. I can already see that. Maybe I could, well, I don't want to do that either, because that's pretty close to that. Drill a hole in the side. Don't have any room here. I could drill one here, but I really don't want to. Just because it's, I don't know. Maybe I could. Put one on the, well, there's not a ton of room on the side either, because the fan's going to be in the way. What I'll probably end up doing is just putting a fitting on the GPU or something, and then filling that way, just to make life a little bit easier. I don't know. Bit of a dance this. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to fill from somewhere else, that's for sure. I'll have to figure that out. All right, I have a feeling that's gonna be too much air, but also probably not gonna be running this thing wide open once I actually get there. So this is probably not a very good test of how it'll handle it, but holy crap. Don't see any leaks from the fittings down below. Yeah, no leaks from the SwiftTech fittings. Not seeing any leaks from my O-ring. I think I have water flow. Yep, definitely have water flow. Probably not the greatest going through this quick release, but you gotta, you know, whatever. Do with what you have, what you can't. Just make it work. But yeah, this is the way it's, I guess, meant to run, going to run. Once I actually install it in the system, I'll make sure that I get this filled up a little bit better. It's looking like it's going to be something I'm going to have to figure out, whether I put a port up here and take the power supply out when I install everything and fill the loop, or what. It looks like I'm going to have to do something, because it's going to be a pain in the butt to fill otherwise. But the point is, it works. It's not leaking. This is awesome. All right, I think that's going to do it for this one. I just really wanted to get this thing put together, assembled, and test it, I guess. I haven't ever built a reservoir before, fabricated a reservoir. I haven't even modified a reservoir before, so this is pretty sweet. I'm really excited that this actually worked and that it's holding water, it's under pressure, and it's probably also under more pressure than I'll have it actually running in the system. Once I install it in the system, I'll probably end up dialing back the PWM a little bit, or dialing back the RPMs through PWM. One, it's noisy if I have it all the way up, but I also don't think I'll need to run it wide open the whole time either, so I'm just really excited. This is awesome. So appreciate those of you that stuck around this long. I would love it if you subscribed and catch any notifications that go by, and let somebody know if you think this is sweet. Let me know if you have an idea where I should put another fill, bleed port, something, because I do think I'm going to have to do something, whether I risk ruining this pump top and put it in the side here. If I kind of put it in the front here, that's also an option. Otherwise, it'll probably be the top here. I mean, that's probably the easiest, unless I put one over here. There's a lot of options. I don't know. I mean, even if I have to take the loop partially apart to get it to work, I'm just really excited. So anyway, until the next one, I will catch you later.